What not to feed quail. I mentioned quite a few things you could forage locally. All kinds of weeds and herbs from your garden are quite suitable. You do, however, want to avoid citrus, tomatoes, potatoes, meat, low quality carbohydrate feeds because they actually do have a pretty high protein need. So, for example, while I might give them the last handful of cooked rice that sticks to the bottom of the rice pot, they aren't as keen on it as they are a higher nutrient feed because white rice doesn't really have all that much going for it other than kind of the basic carb sugars. I feed mine sliced red cabbage sometimes. They love red peppers and will eat the core and seeds if you make it the right size for them. Carrot shreddings, apple cores if you cut it to be bite-sized for them. And I've also recently started sprouting lentils. Uncooked lentils wouldn't be great for them, just dry. But if you soak them and then let them sprout for about 3 days, just by usually you soak them for 24 hours, then you drain off the excess and just leave them moist for a few days. They eat that just fine, and that's a pretty good protein supplement of treats. Some people don't feed any variety or treats at all. You can get game bird food or showbird mixes. I sometimes give millet and the kinds of bird feed you can find at a pet store or grocery store for parakeets, but I was looking into that a little bit more, and the little bits of bright red and green are actually, I think, shaved down dog biscuits, and I decided I didn't really want that in my food chain, so I probably will keep feeding them the bag that I started. And like any living thing, variety is good. But mostly what they get excited about is dust baths and finding bugs and having enough shelter to feel safe and clean water. So these 6 get along. I ordered them from someone in Andalusia, so they're actually from Granada, and I don't think they're all related. I think that 2 of them, the lighter colored birds, are younger than the medium ones. This color is sometimes referred to as golden Manchurian or more often Italian. I sometimes call them golden Italian just to please myself, but that's a made up thing. The lighter birds in this case lay slightly smaller eggs, so I'm guessing somebody was perhaps breeding for color. And the brown birds are more like the standard European Coturnix quail, and I'm not claiming that one color in general lays bigger or smaller eggs, because they're really it's the same bird from different breeding lines. But you might find that if someone has been breeding for color versus breeding for size versus breeding for temperament, things like that, you might get different bird size or egg size within your little covey. I'm partial to the kind of fawn colored light ones. In the beginning, we sort of tried to name them and tell them apart. My kids gave them great names. Atrevida means daring. She's the one that got away. In Catalan, atrevida. Shyla is what I named the one who was kind of, she's not really picked on anymore, but she does tend to eat last. She's at the bottom of the chain and will often hide in the area under the water, which I made so that they could hide out if they want to. We had, let's see, Willow was more yellow, Rowan was more red, Aspen was sort of the brownest one, but these days we're more likely to identify by the eggs. And I've missed a name for somebody. I can't remember. Hopper, Popper, Kids like to name and rename and rename. But now I tend to make a chart and identify them and their laying based on the color of their eggs. One interesting thing about quail is that they produce a spotting pattern on the outside of their eggs with their hemoglobin, and are said to be able to identify which eggs are theirs and have a pattern that you can fairly consistently see whose eggs are whose. And in some cases, I think they can even change their pattern if someone in the covey, they think the eggs are too similar to their own. But in my case, the lighter of the girls, we label those eggs as Galaxy and Polka Dot. They're much smaller splotches. And the one I think might be Celadon, because she's got a little bit of blue tinge to the inside, lays a very distinctive spot on the top. Those get marked down as top spot. Another one is Sideline. And Mich means half and half, and Catalan is kind of the most medium-sized. And then I think the kids either say Big Splotch or Greenie. One of the 6 lays eggs that are really quite green-brown, and I'm not sure. I have read that can be an indication that the bird is kind of holding on to them and waiting an extra day to lay them, or it may also be genetic based on some of what we think of as being Celadon gene that you can breed for. I've read may actually have to do with a difference in digestion amongst those genetics that make them lay a different color egg. I hesitate to pass on too many received wisdom bits and pieces, but I do think it might be helpful to have a little bit of a basic view of what you need, which really isn't a lot. They're pretty happy if they have enough room that, they only are touching when they want to be touching. I think that makes a difference. Mine really aren't too rough on each other. If I miss that the feeder has tipped or the water has tipped or that the feeder is low and they're very hungry or very thirsty, they might pull rank a little bit. But for the most part, they just hang out and tend to lay in the sandbox, lay their eggs in the sandbox, and sleep in the sandbox, which might just be from the heat loss of having a single-paned sliding door in this rental house. We've got our own little microclimate. If they're closest to me in the box, they're also closest to all of the heat that I'm losing throughout the winter through this glass door. Other thing I would say that people have told me, I joined a couple of groups to get advice in the beginning, and I don't have the most predator-proof cage. I'm pretty happy with it, but I was told that if a kindergartner can open your latches, so can a raccoon. I'm in Spain and I'm on a 3rd floor balcony, so there are no raccoons here, and I do want my kindergartners to open the cage. But you might really take into account some of the hexagon style chicken wire can be the right size for quail, but would allow rats or snakes in. And if you know that's a factor where you are, you might reconsider that. I also kind of wish that I'd put one more wide slat of wood along each of my my doors along the bottom, because they kick out a lot of sand. And I just wear sandals out there and it's just not that big a deal. But if an extra slat of wood had been inserted, and still could be probably, to the height, say, of just above the sandbox, then probably more of the sand would stay in and there would be less for me to sweep out. But I've really enjoyed having my quarantine quail. I bought an incubator, and I've not had luck getting fertilized eggs, and travel is restricted during COVID lockdown. So although I found people online who would sell me a rooster, I can't really go pick them up, and I don't really want to pay the amount to ship them. But one of these days, I hope to be sharing a freshly incubated batch too. happy quail keeping. Let me know if there's anything more you think I should know or important things that you would pass on, because it's really been great to try something totally new and have help from so many people who enjoy it as a hobby, or even, some of them make a livelihood with it. But these are my girls. Hello from Barcelona.